Hello, folks. Hi, folks. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Thanks for joining us here on the Gospel Truth channel. We appreciate you being here on a Friday afternoon. And it's my pleasure today to have with us Mr. Ernst Wilhelm. And he's quite a profound guy. All of you see Heidi Vandenberg here a lot. You know, we do a lot of work together. Heidi was just at our extravaganza of enlightenment this past weekend here in Clearwater, Florida. And Ernst, you wrote the software that Heidi uses, correct?
Yeah, I designed it. My wife actually wrote it, programmed it.
Okay. So Ernst not only designed the software that Heidi uses, he also designed the Cards of Truth software that we're going to talk about today that I am very, very excited and learning about using. And Ernst, I have to tell you, I read palms, I do scrying, I use a crystal ball, I've done tarot, I have divining rods, and these cards of truth to me have become such a profound tool because I work with people in personal spiritual counseling, and even when you ask people to tell you about themselves, sometimes people don't always tell the truth, and sometimes people don't really know who they are and where they're coming from. And I find the palms and these cards of truth give me a real good baseline of where someone is and are a profound tool to help us start our spiritual journey.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's really why I call them the Cards of Truth. That's a kind of a name I came up with when they're really just a deck of playing cards. But there's so much truth to that. It's really a book of truth. And it's one of the, I think, oldest philosophical books we have. That not only can we read as a book, but we also can read as an individual by casting the cards or by coming up with their birth spread based on their birth time.
Absolutely.
But it's all about really seeing to the heart of the person, you bet.
And Heidi's here in the chat room, so hello to Heidi. And Ernst, you make the statement, and I found it very audacious at first, but as I'm beginning to learn, I'm beginning to be 100% in agreement with you. You've said that of all the great books in the world, the Bible, the Tao, all of the books, if you could have one book, you would want to have this book that is the Cards of Truth, that the spread that lays out the Cards of Truth. And there's really two books, aren't there? Talk to us about those books, if you would.
Yeah. Really just the playing cards is the book. And the course I teach how to use the playing cards, I call it Reading the Little Book, because this really is a little book of 52 pages. And the reason I consider it the most important single book you can read is because it's the only book that's written in symbols and universal symbols. Any other book you get is written in a certain language at a certain time. And the language and the terms in that text, of course, are relevant to some degree of the age that they were created in. So if you're reading the Bible that was translated from Greek, from the original language into Greek and into English, like the King James Bible, then really you're not really getting what was really there. There's something lost in the translations. And that really happens in all languages. Even if you read the Bible in its original language, the fact that you don't live in the culture, the time that wrote it at that time, there's some deviation of your understanding of that language. Whereas the Cards of Truth, a deck of cards, is written in a symbolic language, the language of nature. As long as there's trees, as long as there's dirt, as long as there's fruit on the trees, as long as there's leaves on the trees, we're in touch with the energies of the playing deck cards. And so it is a symbolic language that really holds meaning at all times, throughout all ages. As long as we're alive, they hold meaning. Whereas any other text, unless we're really know that language, we're going to miss something. And then also as a symbolic language, the cards lets us expand upon those meanings to the area of life, to the problems we're currently having. Whereas anything written in a language is somewhat limited. So it's just a much, much more unlimited textbook than anything else. And it creates such a perfect paradigm of how we work as people in all areas of our life, whether it's if we're having health problems, love problems, financial problems. These things always work or don't work because of a certain law, a certain orderly arrangement of how things work, And the cards show how that works. We just lay out a deck of cards and put all the suits in the order from ace, to 10 of aces to tens, like ace of hearts to 10 of hearts. And if you study that sequence of events in the context of what those cards mean, you can see where you're having problems in your love life and solve it and get to the next step. So it really is a book that applies to any area of life at any time, you know, whether now or 2,000 years ago or 2,000 years in the future, we can use this book. So it's just really great.
Absolutely. Now, Ernst, most people think in terms of, you know, diamonds, spades, jacks, and hearts. And you mentioned that there really are correlations to nature. Can you kind of take us through the suits
Sure.
and relate
Yeah.
them to nature so people can get that profound truth in their heads?
Yeah. Currently, like you said, we call them diamonds, jacks, spades, and hearts. And I see the whole cards deck, the fact that we've got, you know, 4 suits of 13 cards and we have 52 cards, that actually all works with the calendar. For instance, we have 52 days in the week, therefore we have 52 cards. Every season is 13 weeks and we have 4 seasons. So the cards are actually a book of time as well, based on the seasons and weeks and even the days of the year. And that's why we can relate every day of the year to a particular card. So it's kind of also a clock, and that's why it works for like doing predictions or reading your chart with this card system. So let's see, trying to think how the best way to answer that. So, oh yeah, so we have these suits and we call them like diamonds and spades and stuff. But if we really think of what they are, what are diamonds? Diamonds are crystals, right?
Right.
And crystals are what make up the surface of the earth. You know, a rock is just crystals that have been mashed together, but everything has a crystalline structure. Every substance, every chemical, whether you call sulfur, gold, they're all crystalline structures. And so the very building blocks of the entire universe are ultimately crystals, you know. Now, things aren't always in a crystalline form, like water is not in a crystalline form until it freezes. But then it also has a crystalline structure, like everything else does. So really, with diamonds, the connotation of diamonds is basically it's crystals, which means the surface of the earth, the dirt, the ground that we stand upon. And so in cards, diamonds relate to all those types of things. And
so
then
when we see the diamonds, we should think about the earth.
We can think about the earth and resources, because ultimately all resources come out of the earth, you know. Any concrete thing is built out of chemical elements, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And all those chemical elements, and once they're in a non-liquid or non-gas state, always have a crystal structure. Once they hit their melting temperature, they're no longer in a crystalline structure. So if you melt gold or you melt diamond, anything you melt, if you can get it hot enough, will turn into a non-crystalline structure, right?
Yep.
So everything is a crystal that exists ultimately, you know. And now some elements will grow sometimes in non-crystalline ways. Like if you melt sand, which is crystalline, into glass, it won't have a crystal structure anymore. That's aligned. It has what's called an amorphous crystal structure, which is a different type, but it's not a structured structure. It's an unstructured structure, okay? But it's still a crystal structure of sorts. So everything comes down to crystals. Any concrete thing, anything that tangibly exists, anything that you can have a physical relationship with that you can touch is a crystal. Meaning,
wow,
you know, it's a chemical, like it's a concretely existing thing. So the diamonds represent that entire world, but they also show what's crystallized inside a person. So for instance, what your finest skills are, that's your diamond. You know, what the finest thing is, the thing that you're most crystallized in, you're best at, that works most for you, that's the most reliable, that you can count on and depend upon, that's your most valuable resource. Those are all diamonds too, as in the context of inside the person, okay? So that one's pretty easy to grasp. Okay, diamonds, crystals, yeah, I could see that relationship, and crystals are the land, because rocks, dirt are just crystals that have been squished together into rocks. And, you know, the definition of a crystal versus a rock is a bunch of crystals that have been, you know, squished together or come together somehow, even grown together. Whereas a crystal is a pure crystal that's kind of alone, you know?
gotcha.
Okay, so then on top of the ground, in far as nature, we see trees growing. And that's the suit of spades. And if you look at a spade card, you go, wow, that looks like a tree to me. You know, that's what it looks
It does
like,
look like
right?
a tree.
Looks like a tree, right? And so I say just throw out what we've been taught and actually just look at the cards. Like I tell my students, if, you know, playing cards were lost for 5,000 years and somebody found one in 5,000 years, by just spending, hundreds of hours with those cards, he would eventually start figuring out what, what the cards meant and what they came to.
So those do look like trees, don't they?
Yeah, they're big, beautiful trees, right?
Perfect.
But what's important about the tree that they use is you can't see the leaves defined. It's a silhouette of the tree where you can't see the defined leaves. And the reason you can't see the leaves on the tree in the spade as defined things is because the leaves are reserved for another suit, which is the club suit. Okay.
Also, the clubs are the leaves.
The clubs are the leaves, you bet. Okay. So, and when we think of what is a tree is a body that life is flowing through. So literally the tree is pulling up energy out of the earth and pulling that energy inside itself and then doing amazing things with it, like creating leaves. So that's actually a leaf on the tree.
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, right. So, so the spade is the tree, and the spade symbolizes the body that the life force is coursing through. So we have a body and our life force is coursing through it. And it's the life force in the body that makes it valuable. Same as a tree. A tree, it's the energy in the tree that makes it capable of doing the amazing thing it does, like grow fruit to feed things with, and to also grow the leaves, which are really critical part of the cycle of nature. So in the cards, the trees represent the body, the self, the life force in the body, the life that wants to express itself. The same way that the tree wants to grow and it wants to express itself and it wants to be a certain type of tree and it wants to grow fruits on its tree and it even wants to have offspring and all that. That's the same thing spade suits represent, that need to survive, to express ourselves and to live so we can become and be what we are. Okay. And that's why spade suit have to do with things like spending time alone and introspection, working on yourself, improving your psychology, getting in touch with who you are, coming to understand yourself more. It's the self suit. It's about coming to terms with the life that's inside of you that wants expression. And just like a tree is sort of anchored to the ground, it's also a more still suit. It's a more introverted suit. People with a lot of spades tend to be more introverted personalities. They can sit with things better. They're the ones who have the easiest, they have, an easier time with yoga usually and renunciation usually, because it's more about just getting in touch with the life force and the life within themselves. Then the next suit after that is the heart suit, which if you look at a heart, it looks like an apple or strawberry, it looks like a piece of fruit to me.
So Ernst, just let me interject for a second, because I'm thinking it makes such a great progression. You've got the diamonds, which are kind of the earth. Then you've got the spade, which is the tree on the earth, connected to the earth. And then you got the club, which is the leaf connected to the tree, which is connected to the earth. So it's all right there together.
Yeah. And the clubs is the third thing. And if you look at the clubs, it looks like the number 3. It has 3 leaves, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at the spades, a spade looks like a flame too. It's the fire. It's the fire of life within you taking fire of the tree.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you look at the spade, a spade looks like the number 1. And that's why the spades in the cards is the first suit. If you just look at the cards, like, yeah, if I had, out of these 4 cards, if I had to say which one looks like a number 1, it's the spades, right?
Absolutely.
And if I have to look at one of these cards and say which one's number 2, it's obviously the hearts, because it's like getting cut in, there's 2 parts, right?
Right.
Then the clubs are obviously number 3, and the diamonds have 4 edges, so obviously number 4, So
that's profound. It really is a symbolic book, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And if you just watch it, and when I started working with the cards, I noticed there was lots of controversies over what's the first suit, what suit is what element, and so on. Like a lot of card readers will give the diamond suit the fire element. And you can see the rationale behind that. Diamonds have a fiery quality to them, right? They shine and they gleam. But the fire of life is always hidden. The fire is what's hidden in everyone. It's the life that's in everything. Fire is the conscious, intelligent energy that's in everything. That's what fire is. The ancients of all religions, fire was like a god because it symbolized the energy, the conscious, intelligent energy that was inside of everything. In every rock, in every tree, in every living being, there's this conscious, intelligent energy that's seeking evolution. And They call it fire because that fire can be let out, like with fire, they can burn the wood. And they can say, oh, there's something in that wood. How does it burn? There's energy in there. They know there's energy. And of course, with physics, we've proven how much energy is in a single molecule, or a single atom has got so much energy, right?
Right.
And they were aware of that, and they call that energy fire. And so that's the Spade suit. It's the fire that's in everything. It's not the body that's important. It's the fire or the life inside of it, that conscious, intelligent life within it. And so if you look at the spade, it looks like a flame, it looks like a tree, and it looks like the number 1. Then we've got the next suit is the hearts. That's the second suit. Okay, so that's the fruits that the spade produces, the tree produces, obviously, right?
Right.
And that fruit has the purpose of providing offspring to the tree. And it's also about nourishing other people, right? So it's a suit of nourishment and taking care of things, which also like creating life, which is a nourishing process. So the cards are this big emotional suit of fulfillment, because when you eat the fruit, you're fulfilled. If you're not eating the fruit, you're starved. So these days, because we all can just go down to Safeway and grab way more food than we can eat, and then we just have too much time to eat it. We don't have a food, we don't really have to worry about, starved as far as food is concerned. But more than ever, we're desperately starved emotionally. And
Absolutely.
and so all the suits that have both a physical or a triple meaning of all scriptures do. Any statement of truth has 3 meanings: has a physical meaning, emotional meaning or psychological meaning, and a spiritual meaning. So like this heart, on a physical level, it's just food. It's getting the nourishment the body needs. On an emotional level, it's getting the love and the emotional connections we need to stay, balanced and happy. And on a spiritual level, it's the devotion, the connection to the divine. It's that devotional connection to the divine. And all the suits have that threefold meaning. Like, for instance, the spades has the meaning of just your physical well-being. It has to do with your psychological well-being, how you feel about yourself, your psychological complexes that are all about you. And then the third meaning is the spiritual meaning, which is that life within the person, which is their soul, really, that connects them to God. And then in the hearts are, the health of the heart, how healthy the fruit is on a tree depends on the health of the tree, right?
Absolutely.
So if a person has a good spades that allows them to be psychologically healthy, they can go out and have a good relationship with anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if a person has bad spades and lots of hearts, they could be meeting wonderful people every day and mucking it all up because psychologically they're not capable of doing anything healthy. So it's this cycle that everything is founded on the strength of the spades. How healthy you are physically determines what you can do physically, right? How healthy you are psychologically determines how much you can enjoy psychologically with another person. So the spades are always the root of this. Your ability to connect to your deepest self determines your ability to really be devoted to God in a real way.
Absolutely.
And not a pathological way. Lots of times you'll see people devote their lives to a guru or something in a pathological way without any awareness of, and without any self-knowledge. And these are the same people that before they tried devoting themselves to their guru that way, they were smoking pot and taking LSD and doing all kinds of stuff. So everything starts with that spade suit. That's the foundation of our being. That's the fire within us that wants to express as an individual, as a spiritual force in the world too. So anyway, so then we get to the hearts, which represents these nourishing things, the devotional connection to the divine that nourishes us, the food that nourishes, and the love of people that nourishes us, or the connections with people that nourish us. So that's the fruits of life. Those are the things that make it all feel good. That's sort of the reward of life.
Right.
Yeah. In a sense, it's one of the rewards. And then we get to the club suit, and now we've got the relationship between, the clubs are really interesting because, simply speaking, they have to do with ideas and thoughts and trying to understand things. So there's always a conflict, in a sense, between anytime you meet someone, you're going to have a conflict. There's always
Absolutely.
going
You
to be
will.
some, by conflict, I mean, you go home thinking about that person. You go home thinking about yourself and what happened and trying to make sense of it, right?
Yes, you do.
If a person has a spiritual connection, they make a spiritual connection, then they start wondering about and thinking about that, what that means. And they start seeing their life differently because of that, right?
They do.
So those two processes are like the club suit.
Hmm.
Okay. So whenever whenever the spade, the self, meets something that can possibly nourish it, it starts questioning itself. It starts wondering about it, right?
Ah.
Okay. And that's the club suit. It's this questioning suit, trying to understand things. So two things can happen when we encounter something that can potentially nourish us. It can potentially nourish us, but not nourish us. So we can get a fruit off the tree, eat it, and get poisoned. Or we can meet a really beautiful person, fall in love with them, and get our hearts broken. You know? So when those
Isn't
things
that
happen,
something?
yeah. Or we can devote our life to a guru and then walk into the guru's house the next day and find out he's molesting our little sister, right?
Yeah.
And so when there's a possible form of nourishment that hurts us, we go right into the clubs and try to figure out what went wrong. And with the fruit, we go, okay, let me examine that fruit that poisoned me. I want to make sure I need to understand this fruit now. I need to study nature. I need to study what fruits can feed me and what fruits will poison me, right?
Right.
But if it's a heartache, it's like, okay, I need to understand what kind of people will nourish me and which kind of people will stab me in the back. I need to understand relationships and how relationships work, right? That's
Yes.
clubs too. And then it is, okay, I need to really understand what it is to be a true teacher. Where am I going to get my truth from? Because, I walked in on my guru and he was molesting my sister, right? So lots of the clubs activities oftentimes comes because we get hurt by that which we wish to have nourished us, okay? And that's when we start trying to figure things out and using our intellect. That's when we turn to our intellect. We don't turn into our intellect in a huge way until we've had that kind of pain, until we have to.
Can I ask you to respond to something?
Yeah.
Heidi made a statement here, which is very interesting to me. Heidi is her birth card is clubs. Our friend Rex Bear, who was also speaking at this seminar, has a huge YouTube channel, is like me, 9 of clubs. So Heidi's saying all three of us, doing this work, we're all three clubs, and I think Heidi's the queen of clubs.
She's a
Can't
queen,
remember.
yeah.
Yeah, queen of clubs. Does that how does that strike you that the three of us are all clubs?
Yeah, you're going to find most people do this kind of work being clubs or diamonds.
Hmm.
And I'll explain that a little more. Let me sort of
Okay.
finish this thought.
And I know I'm jumping in, so just tell me to
No,
hush and go on.
okay. So whenever there's a possibility for nourishment on any level, spiritual, psychological, emotionally, or spiritually, or physically, if that fails, we have to apply our intellect to do it better next time around. Okay. Now, but what if we make the connection? What if we eat a fruit and it's really yummy and it nourishes us? Or we have a good relationship and we realize how wonderful love can be. Or we make a spiritual connection and get this aha experience and this connection that makes us understand things. When we actually get nourished by these things, then what wants to happen is there's a desire to share that, to communicate that, to teach that. Okay, so the clubs are the two facets of struggling to figure things out that went wrong and also talking about what went right.
Makes perfect sense.
And so this clubs is this thing, it's about communications and sharing information, disseminating knowledge, figuring things out, figuring out what works, what doesn't work. So it's a really wide suit, and you will find people who are struggling to try to make sense of their lives, where they come to astrologers or are astrologers, will often have some strong clubs. Or like I said, they'll have strong diamonds, and you'll really see a difference. And a person can, of course, be born as a 9 of clubs like you are, a queen of clubs like Heidi is, or 7 of clubs like I am. But also there's 13 cards attached to that card for their birth spread.
Right, I'm looking at Heidi's birth spread right now.
Okay, and like when I say a strong club or a strong diamond, I don't mean that has to be their birth card. They could have a card they could say have a 9 of diamonds card that has 4 or 5 planets in it. So they're a strong 9 of diamonds, but they might be, you know, they might not be a diamond or club as a birth card. So it depends where their consciousness is more than anything. Because the consciousness is determined how we're going to tackle things. So people who want answers, who want to figure things out, will come to astrologers a lot, and they'll be club heavy. Or they'll do it. Then there's also people who don't want to know answers about the whys of things. The clubs want to know why, okay? Because they need to teach from why, and they also have to understand, why did I eat this fruit and it poisoned me? Why did I fall in love with a girl that broke my heart, you know? Why did my guru sleep with my little sister, you know? Things like that. They need to know the whys. They're inquiring minds. They're curious. They want to know and they want to understand. And that's why they get into these occult subjects. And then there's some people who get into the occult subjects because they want to know the concrete reality. They want to know the reality of life. They want to know, when am I going to get married? When am I going to get a job? And you'll see people who are more diamond centered, they'll want to go to predictive astrologers. And when they get into astrology, they want to focus on learning how to make predictions. They want to deal with the concrete facts, you know. And the people who are more club heavy, they want to know about, you know, what's happening inside a person psychologically. They want to understand the person. They want to understand the thing. So you'll see two different people come from different points of view. But
and that's exactly the way I'm using it. So you're describing it exactly correctly.
Yeah. And sometimes a person will be strong in both suits. And so they'll go with both, but then they'll usually have some things they like to do. Like I've got some solid diamonds, but then I've also got mostly clubs. So I lean more towards the clubs of trying to figure things out. And while I have done a lot of work with predictive astrology and developing predictive systems, I definitely have more fun when I'm dealing with the learning new things about seeing inside the person, learning new things that can heal a person, and teaching, you know, in a philosophical sense. But I do both because I have both, and most readers have both of some sort. And also clubs people will tend to people who are clubs heavy will spend more time studying and studying and studying. Whereas people who are diamonds heavy, they'll learn the things they need to learn to be able to do what they want to do. And then they'll just do that. They'll crystallize and they'll become super skilled in what they do though. And so, you know, if, you know, diamonds are the people, when people are heavy in diamonds, they'll, what do they call it? They'll specialize in something. You know, they'll just do one type of astrology. They'll learn the type of techniques that work best with that. And they'll do it over and over again until they get really, really good at that. And so they're the specialist always.
Gotcha.
And so it's always good to go to diamond readers for their specialty. But don't ever go for them for what's not their specialty, because they're specialists. They're, you know, you go to the doctor and then you go to the specialist, right?
Right.
Clubs people are always learning. They're always into something new. They always want to understand something from another angle, see it from another point of view, or get into it deeper. So the clubs people aren't going to specialize. You know, they're going to learn, and then they're going to learn deeper and deeper. But they're going to have more tools in their box, you know, because they'll have covered so much, and they can come up with an answer for anything. But they, you know, and they're more curious. So you can really see a difference in the type of readers that are there. And again, I find most astrologers always have some solid diamonds. Like you must have something in your spread that's a solid diamond, right?
Well, let me take a look. So I go, what do I go? I go to file. Oh, there I am.
Okay. Yeah. File open.
Yeah. File open. I've got, yeah, I do have solid diamonds in there.
Yeah. So everyone who does astrology has
Some very solid
diamonds.
diamonds. I got there's 2 cards that are diamonds that are loaded with planets. And then I've got a king of diamonds as well.
Cool. Yeah. And
I mean, there's like 8 planets between the 2 diamonds. So very solid diamonds. You're exactly right.
You bet. Because doing this occult work is such specialized stuff, you know. It takes so much. Diamonds are consistent. And while a club person might dive around in the world of astrology and go to all kinds of places, he's consistently there. You know, he's a specialist in a scholarly field of the occult, you know.
Right.
You know, he's like an occult specialist. And the level of skill it takes to read a chart, to make a prediction, the level of intelligence it takes, you have to have some solid diamonds to do that, basically, because diamonds give you your skill set.
Interesting.
You know, a person, there's people who can talk all day long and can theorize all day long, but they don't have any skills. That's pure clubs. You need your diamonds there to give you that skill set. Because the next really, clubs are a transition to diamonds. The next suit after clubs is the fourth suit, the diamonds. That's what you're left with, the valuable thing you have. So after all that knowledge, all that examination, all that research, all that testing, the person boils it down to this is what works, this is what's useful, and that's the diamonds. And so in the end, what we always share with our clients is what we see as the useful part of everything we've learned, and that's the diamond.
In fact, Ernst, in my chart, all of the planets are in a diamond, every one of them. They all are in a diamond.
Cool. Okay. Good. So that tells me right away that you'll be accurate, because diamonds are skilled, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, diamonds.
And that's funny. I'm very conservative. I don't want to do things I don't know, but when I am working with people, I constantly get, wow, that's right on. That's dead right. So
yeah,
I'm like you're saying, I'm going deeper and deeper and deeper, and it is being very accurate. And you've got such a profound system here.
Cool. So yeah, so they're a good example of a diamond heavy person. Yeah. So we'll see both these suits, and I think people with diamonds work harder. People with clubs have more fun studying. You know? Diamonds people tend to take on a lot more projects involved and a lot more clients than the clubs heavy astrologer.
Well, I sleep like 3.5 hours a day, Ernst. So you're right on that as well.
Okay, well, great that you can get off with so little sleep there.
It's fun.
Okay.
It's fun.
So what else? So I think that covers the suits really basically. Okay, yeah, and of course, let me explain, the leaves of the tree, right? So we talked about the hearts being fruit. So what do the leaves of the tree do? They collect energy from the sun.
Right.
They nourish the tree, and then the leaves fall off and decompose to nourish the ground, which nourish the tree. And so what clubs literally do, they're the ones that bring the intelligence, the light of the sun to earth. They're the philosophers, the teachers. They collect that light of the sun and they distill it down to useful energy that they can teach. So the researchers, the scientists, the teachers, the people trying to figure things out, you know, in a nutshell. And that's what the leaves are doing. They're an energy supply. They supply inspiration. They give the right words to people to help them get through their thing. They help people see things in a way that they can feel energized. Because really, when somebody comes in for a reading, it's a good reading if they leave energized, right?
Absolutely.
If they feel energized and that all their burdens feel lighter because they have so much energy, that's what clubs do. We're taking the light of the sun and distilling it into sugar to nourish people with, you know, to give them something, some hope, something they can work with. And ultimately, the leaves fall off the tree and decompose and nourish the soil, and which means nourish the diamonds. And then the diamonds are richer from the knowledge of the clubs. And being richer, the diamonds can grow a bigger tree now, right?
Absolutely.
And then the cycle goes. And that's literally how it happens. At first, the ground has no chance. There's nothing to live on the ground at first. Then a few mold spores land. Not mold, a few, what's it called? Moss spores will land. Those are the most basic plant forms. And those mosses will live on those rocks for thousands of years. And those are the spades on the rock at that time. Eventually, enough mosses die and decompose that a little tiny plant can grow. And then eventually that plant, you know, loses its leaves and bigger trees can grow until millions of years later, you got these giant oak trees growing there. And that's what literally happens in the cycle of the cards. Every time that we go through the phase of nourishing the diamonds more from the clubs and the fruits that fall on them, we can get a stronger tree, a healthier tree, a bigger tree, a new species of tree. And so ultimately, one of the things we do as readers is we help the person find their diamonds, which means we help them find their self-worth. We help them find what's good inside of them. We help them heal their wounds, you know, find their self-respect. Those are all diamond qualities. And out of that, they grow into better people. And that's you know, and then they go around. So we're constantly in this state of evolution of going from spades to hearts to clubs to diamonds to a stronger spade, a more beautiful tree, a stronger sense of self, a more confident person, a healthier person, and so on.
Interesting stuff. Amazing stuff. Ernst, how did you figure out how you should structure the little book? How did you figure out where things go and how it works?
Okay. A lot of it was just because of, you know, all the occult studying I've done with astrology and tarot and everything. And, you know, and just having all these having understood all these occult concepts, when I started getting into the cards again after years, I was working with cards for a long time, but then I got into them really heavy again, you know, years later after having just learned so much more stuff. I just started seeing all these things I didn't like about how a lot of stuff was being done just conceptually.
Right.
Now, when you cast cards, you can believe anything you want, and the cards are going to fall in accordance with your belief.
Interesting.
So you can take 52 business cards, write some words on the back, shuffle them up, and do a card reading. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people do that. There's hundreds of these predictive decks out there. You know, oracle decks they call them. But the playing card deck is special in that it's a book of truth too. You know, and so is a tarot deck. It's a book of truth. I mean, it is a book you can read as a philosophical book. If somebody just writes 50 random words on some business cards, they can do a reading for them. But those 50 random words don't tell me the mysteries of all life, you know?
Gotcha.
Okay, so an oracle deck doesn't tell you the mysteries of life, but a true deck does. This is a book of wisdom first, and it can be used as an oracle deck just like any deck can. You know, I can get 50 different business cards at 50 different corporations, and somebody says, am I gonna see my boyfriend this weekend? And I pull the card of Mattel, which makes toys. I could say, yeah, you're gonna have a great time playing with your boyfriend this weekend, you know? And it would work, you know? But that's not gonna be a book of wisdom exactly. The
Right.
cards are a book of wisdom. As a book of wisdom, they have to be read correctly. Meaning we can't think that diamonds are the fire element unless they really are the fire element. And there's a controversy. On the suits of the cards, there's a big controversy of what rules what element. So I had to spend a lot of work going, okay, what element is really there? And I went through lots of theories, and finally I said, stop it. Just look at the cards. What card looks like fire to you?
Wow.
Okay, the Ace of Spades looks most like fire to me. You know, what card looks the most like wind to me? Well, let's see. Leaves blow in the wind. Leaves talk to me and make noise when the wind blows. When I blow my wind out of my mouth, I talk, I teach.
Right.
That's what clubs are doing, right? So I'm like, well, the leaves are the air. What looks like earth to you? Well, earth is fourth dimensional. Crystals, diamonds look like earth, you know? What looks like the water element? Well, water's responsibility is to nourish us and replenish us. Out of all those pictures, the one I would eat first is the one that looks like an apple or a strawberry. Right. You know?
Or a strawberry, yeah.
You know, I'm not going to put the one in my mouth that looks like a flame.
So it's almost very intuitive on which way to order the cards in the little book. You just start with the one looks like that, the 1, 2, 3,
number one.
And boom.
Yeah. So I had to let go of a lot of theories I'd read and studied and just say, okay, let's just look at the cards here. Mm-hmm. And then it all came together. And of course, with the numbers, there's so many ways you can teach the numbers. And I think learning the numbers is the harder part of understanding the cards. We got the Ace of Hearts, the 2 of Hearts, the 3 of Hearts. Okay. Understanding what hearts represents is pretty basic, pretty easy, you know? But what does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on really mean? That was where it was really all that occult knowledge I had that really helped with that. And I tried to teach in a way that was easily understood. Like in Vedic astrology, we've got these ways we break down numbers from 1 to 10, and we have these Sanskrit words of what they mean. Like the number 1, we use word birth. The number 2, we use the word flying together. The number 3, we use the word flying apart. Number 4, we use secure in mind. Number 5, we use averted. Number 6, we use the little fulfillment. Number 7, we use destruction. Number 8, we use the word friendship, number 9 is the word divine friendship, and number 10 is karma, action.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, those are great keywords for those numbers. So a lot of the things I taught was based on those keywords. And another way I tried to teach the numbers was geometrically. Like for instance, on the card deck, one of my people made out, one of my students did recently, we put the card pips in a geometrical formation. Like this is a 6 of diamonds, and even cards, for instance, even cards tend to be nicer, easier cards. 3, 5, and 7 are the tough cards. If you put the cards in a geometric order, like a hexagon is number 6. You can see it's the tips of a hexagon, the corners of a hexagon. If you were to be walking down the road on the 6 of diamonds, you can walk right through the card and not hit any obstacles. Well, that's exactly what a 6 of diamond feels like. But you get you get some other diamond like let me find this. Okay, you get like the 5 of diamonds here. And it's your pentagram, tip corners of the pentagram. If I'm cruising up the road, I'm gonna hit an obstacle I'm gonna have to figure out.
Right.
5s are like that. So there's a whole there's a whole like mathematical geometric way to understand the numbers that I taught too. And then I taught the numbers in some other way. So I taught the numbers in like 3 different ways. And different people will gravitate towards certain ways. One person might really go, oh yeah, this really helps me with the numbers. Another person might go, oh my God, that one's too confusing for me. One of my favorite way to teach the numbers is with the major arcanas.
Yes.
Yeah, and I really consider the major arcana sort of like keys to the cards, meaning that they're an instructional aid to use the cards and understand the cards. And every number relates to an arcana card. So for instance, we've got pairing of the cards, like the devil and the lover is a pairing. And red, it's the sixth pairing in my system. So red 6s are the devil, and black 6s are the lovers.
Yep.
Okay, so they're polarity cards because every number has a male and female side. So a black 6 is the lovers. They move forward in life. They go after something in life because they want it. They love it. They go, I want that. I love that. I'm going to do what it takes to get there. The 6 of spade goes, for me to have that, I have to become the kind of person who has that. Isn't that like obvious advice?
It is.
If I want something because I love it, I have to be the kind of person who has that thing. So I love money. I want to be a millionaire. So now what do? I have to become the kind of person who is a millionaire.
Right.
That's a 6 of diamond. That's how 6 of diamond lives its life. A lot of people love money, but they don't want to become the kind of person who has $1 million. So they never will. Okay.
That's right.
So one way we get what we want is we become what gets that. It's such a basic thing. I find that the problem 99% of my clients have is they want to have something that they're not the kind of person who gets that. And so they want me to predict when it'll come in their lives. And I tell them it'll come into your life when you're the kind of person that gets that.
Yep.
A kind of person who gets love is the kind of person who can feel love.
That's right.
A kind of person who gets attention is the kind of person who can handle attention, not someone who withdraws from attention,
Right.
And so often we do this. A kind of person who gets that job is the confident person, And I have a rule that I try to teach in that we get what we are.
Right.
So we want something else, become the thing that gets it.
Absolutely.
The 6 of spade is what gives us that ability to become what actually gets that, to grow into that mature thing that gets that. So it's a huge growth card,
Yeah.
But then we get like the 6 of clubs. It's also a black 6, so it's also a lover card. It goes after what it loves. It pursues what it loves. It chases what it loves. How does it do it? It learns about it. If you want to have a good relationship, learn what it takes to be in the relationship. If you want to be in love with that girl, learn what it takes. Learn what you need to know to be with that girl, right?
Right.
Find out what she likes and bring her that as a present. Learn about it, figure it out. So the other way we can get what we want is by figuring it out, understanding it. And of course, that's where these tools are a big thing to help us understand things so we can proceed towards where we want to get in our lives.
And Sandra's asking you, Ernst, can a person change or affect what their cards say by doing personal work?
Well, the thing is, there's no need to change what our cards are saying. We think there is, but there's not. The cards are saying what they need to say because it's what we need to hear. What we have to learn how to do is to, you know, be one with that energy, to be okay with that life. And okay is not the right word. Okay is a shitty word. What I mean, we need to learn to thrive in that life.
Gotcha.
The reason we can't, the reason people want to change their charts, the reason people want to change anything, their cards, their chart, because they have a sense of separation in life, which means they're not happy, they don't feel connected, they have a sense of separation. But there's factors in our charts, whether our astrology chart or our card chart, that only allow us to experience half our life. The average person is walking around only experiencing half their life. So of course they feel empty. Of course, whoever they fall in love with, they feel emptiness with. And I think Heidi wants me to talk about K2 with her next week. If I talk about her with K2, I'll be talking about this stuff a lot.
Gotcha.
But we're really literally only experiencing half our lives. And that's what's missing. What's missing is the other half of our life that we're not in touch with. And so because of not experiencing that half, people think, if I change this half that I think is most important to me, I'll be happy and fulfilled. But even if they could change that half, they won't be happy and fulfilled because still half their life is missing. So the secret to being happy is to live a full life. For every part of us to be nourished and connected, not to think we need just one part of us connected. That's a dead-end street, because we need to be complete beings. And so we can read all that in the chart. So, but no, there's no need to change anything except learning to be open to the entirety of our lives and seeing how we're sabotaging our life because we've only allowed ourselves to live half of it. It's really the depth of psychology that we live on. The psychological limitations we all live under are shocking, utterly shocking.
So we need to soar with our strengths instead of trying to change things.
We need to not only soar, we need to soar with our strengths, but we need to allow everything else in that's not a strength too.
Gotcha.
And
now, Ernst,
also
you talk about
okay.
I'm sorry, the little book shows, like you say in your video, that I'm learning a very orderly way of life, very ordered, very structured, but that's not what real life is it? And there's another book that comes in and describes that.
Yeah. The little book, when we have the pages in order, is the natural progression of how things work. Okay, that's the natural progression. As one Rishi said, Vashit, he said, it's natural for humans to be unnatural. The natural state of humans is being unnatural. So as a result of that, we don't follow this natural order. And that's why every human's different. Every dog is the same, every cat's the same, every moose is the same, every rattlesnake's the same, but every human's different because the natural state of human is to be unnatural.
Right.
And that's why even if you look at primitive tribes, they're doing all this crazy stuff like piercing their ears and, tearing their, stretching their lips out. It's like, whoa, why would they do that back then? I thought they only did that in New York, So, so we have our birth spread, okay? And I call this, the book, the course I have on this, reading the little book is how to read a playing card deck, okay? And a major arcana tarot deck and everything. Then in the time in the little book is we take the time you were born and we create a unique spread for you. And that spread has a total of your birth card plus 13 other cards that represent
the Queen Quadration, right?
Queen Quadration. Yeah. And it's basically, it's the manifestation of God that you are at that manifested at that time as you, okay?
And it's amazingly accurate.
It's shockingly accurate.
That's a better word. It's shockingly accurate.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. The connections in this system are so obvious compared to other systems. Other systems, you're like astrology, you're digging around looking for the connections. The connections in the system are so obviously strong that every time I talk to one of my students, they always tell me these amazing stories of connections between spreads and other people that they found that I never even thought of looking for. They're just so obvious. The minute you start using the system, it's like, there's another connection, there's another connection. Things I never thought of, that I never even thought of teaching because there's too many of them. They're just so obvious when they happen.
I'm
Like
living that right now, Ernst.
yeah, a person will like have a certain day with a certain card, and then they'll meet someone who's that card, you know? And it's just really, that's one thing I love about this system. With other systems, we'll say, okay, you're gonna have a problem with, you know, a person in your life. They're like, who is it? You're like, well, I don't know. But with this system, you can say, well, it's gonna be a diamond person, a queen of diamonds, okay? And they're like, oh, you know what? My aunt's a queen of diamonds. And next week they have a problem with their aunt. You know, it's like, wow, it's a queen of diamonds person. Or you're gonna meet someone who's, you know, a 6 of hearts. And the next week they meet someone who's got 6 of hearts, or they meet someone on a 6 of hearts day. You know, there's just all these cool parallels that makes you feel like more than any other system, when I do card readings, I feel like I'm doing like magic.
You really do. And I think I also found it very powerful. You say in one of the, I've listened to so many of your videos, you say, start looking for, asking people what kind of card they are, and learn not just the card, but learn what those people look like. What does the Ace of Hearts really look like? What does a Queen of Diamonds really look like? You know, look at the person and learn the person. It's powerful.
Yeah, it really is. It's just so magical. Every time I do reading with it, I don't feel like I'm just working it. I just feel like I just feel like magic just happens. Like, wow, it's working too easy sometimes. So
Now,
it's just
Heidi
a
says she
wonderful
thinks the
system.
nakshatras do that as well. Would you agree with that?
Nakshatras can when a person's attuned to them. You bet, you know. And there's a lot of, you know, we can relate some card things to nakshatras too if we wanted to, I think. I haven't taught anything like that, but I've been playing with some cool nakshatra card relationships too. So maybe I'll get into teaching those down the road. But nakshatras are very cool and they need to be attuned to, but they're pretty magical too, definitely. Are
Absolutely.
you working with nakshatras yourself, or is it from what Heidi you've seen with Heidi?
No, that's just what Heidi had said, but it's funny, when I was thinking about making my own card deck, I was thinking about including the nakshatras, the major arcana, and the playing cards. So it's interesting that, you know, once you start down this road, you begin to start thinking, you know, in the same lines as other people that are in this work are thinking, because it does all kind of correlate together. It's very amazing.
Yeah. And you know, in my card system, if you did the first book, the first course I have in my on my site is reading the Arcana cards.
Yep.
Because that's really the foundation of so much of what we do. And you'll remember we have two sets. We have the male set with that comes out of the world, and the female set that comes out of the stars, right? Well, the world is the zodiac signs, and the stars are the nakshatras, literally.
Right.
Because nakshatras are the stars, right?
Absolutely.
So all those cards that I relate to the female, to the red playing cards, those all relate to the nakshatras too. Those are all the stars, the inner part of our life, the consciousness that's making all the worldly things happen. So there's a direct correlation to all those, and by studying, I might actually teach another class on understanding the cards via nakshatra energies, because I have so many people who are studying cards who are doing astrology as well. But there's parallels there. So it's another way a person could study the cards and learn more, or learn more about the nakshatras.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, Ernst, because I originally thought, you know, again, I want to get a baseline on people. I'm going to learn the Vedic astrology. I bought a book about nakshatras that Heidi said to read. And I started reading this thing and I'm like, you know, because I'm a Virgo ascendant, I got to dive deep in everything. I'm like, there's just too much. I can't do this. And then when I found the card part of it, I'm like, oh, this is for me right here. This is perfect.
Yeah.
Because it allows me to be more focused, and it's just perfect for me.
It's the best system. You know, I want to try to spend more time teaching it and promoting it. I really think the cards is the best system for people to learn, because astrology is so big. It's just a big woods to get lost in. The cards are focused and so crisp. You know, a person can study cards for a year and start doing amazing things with them, even less than that, you know, whereas most people can't even tie their shoes with Vedic astrology for the first year.
Right.
You know, they're just like infants still. It's just, It's too big.
You know, it's
And then
funny you mentioned that, Ernst, because I kind of got a little bit of a handle on the birth card, and Heidi Vandenberg on a live show like this keeps telling me, read my birth card, I'm like, I'm not ready, Heidi. I'm not ready, Heidi. I'm not ready, Heidi. She says, do it. So finally she twisted my arm and I did her birth card, and she's like, dude, you nailed it. It was fantastic. So you
yeah,
really can learn some pieces in a short time.
yeah. And what's cool
And thank you, Heidi, for the push.
yeah, in a short time, a person can learn a philosophical system that can change their lives. They can learn how to predict the future, and they learn how to counsel, all at a very high level, as high a level as you can do with any other system.
Right.
With the least confusion, the least amount of pain, the least amount of controversy, there's so much controversy in all these occult fields, the least amount of questionings. Like with Vedic astrology, we got the whole, what zodiac do I use? What nakshatra calculation do I use? Yeah. What dasha do I use? Oh my gosh.
North, south, all this other stuff.
Yeah, it's like, it's just no fun.
Mm-hmm.
I wish
Ernst, let me say this before we run out of time. I just wanted to tell you this. One thing I really appreciate about your software is that it's not plug and play. I don't put in the data and it doesn't give me what to say. It doesn't give me everything. It does the actual physical work for me, and I still go in and learn to do the actual interpretation. I learn to do the actual reading. I love that it's not plug and play. It actually makes you do the work and become a real reader.
Yeah, it's really that's what it's for. It's for readers. It's not for creating reports and handing them out.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're trying to get something that in 5 minutes you can go to a spiritual fair and hand out reports, this isn't for you.
No.
If you want to change
in
people's
5
lives,
months, you could be doing better than that.
Say that again.
In 5 months of study, a person can be doing way better than any reports.
Absolutely. In 1 month, it's amazing to me what I've been able to do. And Ernst, if you will, tell people where they can get your information and your training.
Yeah, everything's at cardsoftruth.com. And it's basically a membership-based, a subscription-based website where you pay $29.95 a month to watch as many videos as you want. I probably have about somewhere 200 to 250 hours of videos spread into about 5 different courses, really. And I'm still working on the site, and I hope to, put more stuff up. But really, the most critical stuff, the heart of everything's there.
Yep. And Ernst, you really don't charge enough. The software is only like $50 or something to learn.
Yeah, the software is like we're giving it away, but
you are. And even the $29 a month isn't enough because it's so much power in there.
Yeah, but I only have so much time to spend my money. Because seriously, I spend all my time, studying, and then if I'm not studying, I'm out in the woods.
Thank you, Rowdy.
Both of those are free.
They are. But, I just want to really encourage people, if you feel like this is something that resonates with you, if you get some money for Christmas, buy the software and begin to study it and read it. And you've got to spend, I would say, at least for the first 6 months, give Ernst $30 a month. You spend more than that for lousy coffee at some national coffee house. Yeah. And really learn this and internalize it. And if you don't feel like you want to learn it or have time to learn it, for heaven's sake, find somebody like me, gratuitous plug, to do a birth card reading for you, to do your reading. Go to Heidi for your Vedic astrology, and it will show you things about you. You will know you better than you ever know. And just to know yourself, that gift is worth. How much money could you spend, Ernst, to know yourself? It's priceless.
Yeah, the first astrologer I went to, she told me how she became an astrologer, and she had a bad episode, started seeing a psychologist, went to a psychologist for 9 months. Then she bumped into a person, a friend of her son's. The person read her chart, and she said 90 minutes, she got more done than in 9 months of therapy.
Absolutely.
So think of how much 9 months of therapy costs, right?
Well, at least $100 an hour, right? And
at least
once a week. So do the math. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, you're talking a lot. Astrology is cheap. The occult, cards are cheap. It's all a wonderful science. And the amount of money, like you said, you can't even get a decent meal for 2 people for $30 anywhere.
No, you sure can't. You sure can't. And Ernst, I've been doing spiritual work for 36 years. I spent 20 years as a as a Assemblies of God Pentecostal evangelist, and now I've been
Oh, neat.
16 years in this realm. And you know, you don't pay me to say this; I pay you. Uh, it's the most profound system I've ever seen for knowing yourself, knowing the future, and giving yourself a great path to walk on, and even for prediction. It's the best thing I've seen, Ernst, in 36 years.
Wow. Well, thank you so much.
It really is. It's
Saying
just
that.
profound. It's powerful. What would you like to leave with people? Why should people get their reading from this, and why should people learn to read these cards?
I think really it's just so they can be happier, live a better life. And by better life, I mean have a happier existence, enjoy their life more, not tie themselves into knots, untie some of the knots that are hurting them. And ultimately, I think to understand that there's a reason and purpose for everything, and that we don't have to be shell shocked. We don't need to be scared. We don't need to worry. That underneath it all, God in the form of time is managing our whole lives, and if we can get in touch with that a little bit, it can take a lot of the strain off our, the stuff we have to go through.
Absolutely.
But I think the brain has an ability to heal us, to change effectively what's happening to us. And if we get that understanding, once the brain gets an understanding, it can shift you physically, it can shift you emotionally. And when those shifts happen, when your magnetism changes, that's when you can start experiencing the other half of your life that is not coming because your magnetism is rejecting it.
Yeah.
And
How did you get all this wisdom as young as you are? How could you put this together? I mean, you look like
I've
you're
been doing this a long time.
35-year-old guy.
No, I'm older than that. I've been doing, I've been doing astrology for 25 years now, and I'm 47. And before that, astrology, I was doing, a lot of other healing-centered things for a few years. So I've been at this in one form or the other for quite a while, but astrology has really been full-time for 25 years.
Amazing. And, folks,
almost.
even if you don't buy the software, even if you don't, learn to read the cards, I would recommend that you go to cardsoftruth.com, get a subscription for at least a couple months, watch the video about the Arcana cards, watch the video about reading the little book, watch the video about time in the little book. It'll change your life and give you a greater understanding of what life is all about and what we're here for.
Yeah, and really my favorite part of that is where I talk about the card suits, where I talk about the Ace of Spades is the seed that's bursting, that the sprout spurts out of the seed, and the Two of Spades is the tree that has the two leaves on the seed just breaking through the earth. And I talk about how every card represents the stage in nature, the tree, the growth of the fruit, the growth of the leaves, the growth of the earth, and that our life, when you see that your life follows this process of nature, all of a sudden your life makes sense. And where things didn't work out, you'll know what you needed to have done or what you can do to make things work. It's just, those are my favorite videos in the course, are just explaining how life is working in accordance with nature, one step at a time. And when you see what step you're on, life makes sense.
It does. It gives you a real sense of, oh, I get it. I understand. And plus, ladies and gentlemen, you get to learn about Madonna's cards and Tom Cruise's cards as well.
Yeah, who can resist that, right?
Who can resist that?
Yeah, and don't forget the serial killer charts I do in one episode too.
I haven't got there yet. Yes, I have. Now, Heidi says, can you ask him a brief on ecliptic card?
Okay, so the ecliptic card is the 10th card in your birth spread.
Right.
And it's a really important card because it's the path that you're walking. Just like the planets are moving along the ecliptic, that's the path of our consciousness is walking down that road.
And I happen to be looking at Heidi's ecliptic card right now.
Yeah, so she's got a 9 of spades there.
Yeah.
So the path, that card that a person's walking on is basically the road that they're going to meet their experiences on.
Yeah.
They're going to meet their spouse on that road. They're going to make their money on the road. It's the road we're walking on. And along that road, there's all these cool little things. So it's really the most important card in your spread after your birth card. So
would you say that Heidi's going to marry a 9 if you had to guess?
Well, I like to tell you so for your own sake and everything, for your own fantasies maybe. But seriously, the 9 of spades, we have to look where it takes her. It takes her to the ace of spades. And so, no, it doesn't. Hold on.
No.
It takes her to the three of diamonds. Okay. So, basically the path card is literally a road. So on her card, it goes from 9 of spades to the 3 of diamonds to the 7 of hearts. So that's like the road she's on.
Gotcha.
So 9 of spades, the 3 of diamonds. Well, 9 of spades is the person who takes the time they need to become what they need to be. So it's a person who can, be alone, which is an important part of, like Yogananda said, no one is, greatness requires solitude.
Right.
Black nines are the best cards for solitude.
And Heidi says that all of her friends tend to be nines.
Okay, interesting. And then that's going to take her to the 3 of diamonds, which is.
Now, why does it take her up to that particular card? Ernst?
Because
I haven't got there yet.
The ninth planet is K2.
Right. I see
and
that.
And K2 is in the 3 of diamonds in her spread.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So the 3 of diamonds is cultivating your skills and talents, your resources, your finances. So she's always going to be working hard in those areas. 3 of diamonds is it's interesting. The 3 of diamonds and the 9 of diamonds are the two, you can say, most skillful occult cards.
Mm.
The 3 of diamonds gets pushed into the occult lots of times because of life not working. And they so much want to figure out how to make life good. They're perfectionists. They want it to work better.
You're explaining Heidi exactly.
Yeah, I really don't. I talked to Heidi once. I really don't know her. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Trust me, you're explaining her perfectly.
Okay, so 3 of diamonds has got all this force. They've got incredible amount of energy. They can be very critical towards themselves. They're very critical about others. They're really seeking perfection. They want something that they know they can really count on, which is something perfect. So they can be a little difficult sometimes, but the amount of growth 3 of diamonds are capable of making is huge. And sometimes, so regularly you'll see people with strong 3 of diamonds make, go from A to Z the fastest,
Gotcha.
They just have this incredible capacity to push. But it's hard, It's a hard card, the 3 of diamonds, because it's hard for a 3 of diamonds to feel safe. It's very hard for them to feel safe. Because the thing with diamonds don't get safe until the 4 of diamonds.
Gotcha.
Ace is safe at the spade. Hearts are safe at the 2. Clubs are solid at the 3. But diamonds don't get safe until the 4 of diamonds. So the 3 of diamonds is what's right before that.
Gotcha.
But
the ecliptic tells you the life that you're going to live. It's the path you're on is your ecliptic card.
Yeah, and so that'll take her to the 7 of hearts then, and that'll let us see the road. And it's a pretty fun road here, because she's got some tough cards there. So that means she's a fighter, and she's definitely a fighter and has a lot of things that she has to push against in this lifetime and get on top of.
Are some of those self-created?
There's nothing that's truly self-created, right?
Gotcha.
Everything is created from the divine,
All right, yeah.
Right? Everything is divine manifesting through us. And so the divine wants to manifest through us all in a very different way. And so, yeah, it's self-created by the self, the big self, ultimately, right?
Yeah.
What is self-created is our relationship to that. And we can create a healthy or unhealthy relationship to that thing. So we can be healthy or unhealthy regardless of what we are expressing or regardless of what we have. That's why you'll find healthy musicians that are famous and unhealthy musicians that are famous, right?
Yes, you will.
And actors and shoe shiners, So, but yeah, you can see when you see a 3 of diamonds in a card in a spread, that's strong. She's got K2 there, Saturn, Moon, and Pluto. So that's a loaded 3 of diamonds. It shows that a person, feels an urgency and a push to get to the next level. It's critical for them to get to that level of safety and security. Heidi's 3 of diamonds falls in the Mars card, which is the 3rd card, and that gives a lot of strength to her. 3s in the Mars card are a wonderful number to have there because they're at home there.
Yeah.
So that'll give her a lot of power. So she's a powerful little girl.
She is, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Anyway, I don't want to embarrass her too much here, So I'll shut up now.
She doesn't embarrass that easily. But Ernst, again, just a very, very profound system. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. If you would just sit there for one quick second so I can say goodbye to everybody and then say goodbye to you personally.
Okay,
Folks,
sure.
thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to find out more, go to cardsoftruth.com. That's Ernst's website. It's just loaded and chock full of stuff. If you're interested in getting your birth card read, you can contact me. But go to cardsoftruth.com, learn this system. I appreciate you for being here, seeking after truth. And until next time, keep moving, keep learning, keep questioning answers, and keep unindoctrinating.